Hello there, hope you're very well. This video is about the relationship between anxiety and imposter syndrome and identifying that within yourself. So first of all, I think it's necessary to say what is anxiety. Well, maybe that's fairly obvious, just feeling anxious within yourself, but actually on a level which is not just being a bit worried about something, it's kind of being riddled with a feeling of concern, and you physically feel it in your breath. And obviously I know we all know this, but it's important to say that anxiety can be very extreme, and of course in very severe cases it can result in a panic attack. Now that anxiety happens to me. I feel a sense of anxiety at least 50% of the time when I'm rehearsing, when I'm performing, or actually in the performance itself, and it's because of various factors. I think the only way I can kind of not feel any sense of anxiety is effectively doing therapy the night before, and the morning of a performance, and to do everything extremely slowly. To have basically nothing else on, to just rock up to the place, just be like, oh hello, arrive in my sandals and shorts and just super, basically like this. This is why I don't really care that much about my appearance, because I don't want to. Okay, it's not entirely true. I do care about my appearance, but I don't think about how I look all the time, because to me that's almost anxiety-inducing. I want to combat that. So I try to spend most of my life I very rarely actually achieve this, but what I want to is to not be as anxious as a person, because then it means that when I walk into a performance space, I won't have to negotiate that anxiety. But okay, the problem is sometimes I have that anxiety, what I can do is recognise if I'm anxious like half an hour before a rehearsal, and then just sit down, have a coffee, process why. And then I can actually do some gentle singing warm-ups, which will effectively encourage airflow, and getting rid of carbon dioxide, centering yourself, centering your breath, calming your nervous system, autonomic nervous system stuff. And that's why getting to the parasympathetic nervous system, I can actually heavily lower my anxiety in that sense. But you see, sometimes I don't have such time, and if that's the case, and I'm going somewhere to sing and I don't have a lot of time to sort of negotiate a feeling of anxiety, I just take it easy within the environment, self-accept, accept how you feel, and use the expression of what you're doing as a vehicle for channeling that anxiety, that energy. I actually find it very beneficial to sing very loudly, actually, when I'm in an anxious state. And the reason why I'm trying to provide this context, because in that situation I can feel imposter syndrome. In fact, I think that is the way that I feel imposter syndrome, and I can feel it all the time in any musical situation. So the thing is, I don't feel it really with teaching, because I'm the teacher, and I've cultivated what I perceive to be a safe space for me and the student, and therefore I don't feel out of place. I feel very comfortable. I have felt a bit of imposter syndrome in the past, especially when I feel like what we're trying to do in singing lesson I don't actually understand well enough. Nowadays, I've started singing so much on my own time that there isn't a single thing that I would mention in lesson which I haven't contemplated, and which it means that I don't feel like a charlatan, I don't feel like a fish out of water. So in that sense, I don't feel like an imposter. So that's why I don't feel imposter syndrome in a singing teaching context. For me, just good teaching well is to do with energy. Do I have sufficient energy, for example, whether mental or physical? Now the thing is, just going back to my own performance analogy, so if I feel the imposter syndrome because of feeling anxious, and as I say, self-accept the state. You have to be aware that you're feeling that, right? Self-accept, but self-accept the present moment. So okay, so I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling a bit of an imposter. Here I am. This is where I am. Okay, so and then as I said, as I alluded to earlier, then the thing is, I've studied singing enough to know how do I handle my brain in that situation. This is a really interesting thing, is anxiety affects my musical mind. It affects my musical mind so profoundly that to some extent I can mispitch a second, or can't sing an octave or a fifth, and it's like, how do you bounce back from that? Effectively, I have to go through a scale in my mind. So you'll know that I'm combating a bit of anxiety in performance, because I will be a bit quieter. And I will look through the music, because if I'm looking through the music, nobody's going to disturb me. Okay, so I'm just trying to get the notes going in my head. I'll look through the music even if I wasn't anxious, but because I want to know what I'm singing. But it's in okay. Once I've got that fifth and the sixth and the octave in my mind, then I have a pivot for my voice. Okay, and it means okay, and then the rehearsal starts, and then from that, all I do is just sing that. Just try and just sing the right notes in relation to what's in my mind. Take it easy. Acknowledge the breath flow, and really important thing is to listen. So you have to listen a lot, and I've actually developed this more this year. Is the ability to sit or to be in an environment, a musical rehearsal performance, and to actually just like listen to the chords before that happen around you, listen to yourself. And the musical experience is so profound that whilst I'm seeking stability and I'm trying to channel my nervous system into that stable path, it always gets there. It always gets there because of the method. Now, if I'm super anxious, then it's possible I will carry the anxiety throughout the entire rehearsal and performance. But it is possible for me to shift state, is my point. And then if you're listening to others and you're part of a group, then that's the kind of icing on the cake, is realizing that you've shifted from a feeling of anxiety to really that of self-assurance, and the self-assurance is now existing within the group. And honestly, this is kind of why I love choral singing. This is actually how I understand the transformation of parts of self. In my own therapy, my own mental health, I deal with what my therapist and I refer to as a preoccupied part. So I have a tendency to get very obsessed in something, and that can be very advantageous because it allows me to negotiate detail in many aspects, especially in my work, but basically anything really. I can put my hand to a lot of things and try and get better through the preoccupation of them. But then the problem is that state can be too much, and it can mean that it's very difficult to come away from that. And the antidote is to feel a sense of reality and presence. And I find it very useful to tap into the nervous system and to do some exercise, to talk to people, to socialise. I have a new compulsive order in my therapy, which I now refer to as PSEE, which is Purpose, Social, Exercise, Emotions. Anyway, I'm not going to go more into that, but I'm happy to explain if someone wants to know. But essentially, the preoccupied part is it can be transformed into a state of reality and presence. And this is the thing, the anxiety part can be transformed into confidence or self-assurance. I think confidence is a word which is more commonly than not misunderstood, because confidence is only something that you know, that you feel within yourself. If people say, oh, he seems confident, well, it just seems confident. Doesn't mean they are. That's the point, is that when I perform, I can come across as very confident. I have extremely developed masking skills as a performer. Like, it is imperative to be as a performer, to be like, look at this pen, it's magnificent. I'm dying inside, I wish I had some breakfast. It's that sort of thing. You have to convey an emotional state through your body, through your intention, but actually, at the back, it's not happening. It's, because you actually have to have that skill, because you will need that. You will need it at some point, because we don't lead lives where we're just being chaperoned from place to place and doing everything very slowly and nothing's anxiety inducing. I think anxiety has existed, obviously, since the dawn of humanity. But the fact that people now talk about imposter syndrome is good. But the issue that I have slightly is that there isn't a lot of conversation as to how imposter syndrome shifts, and actually the fact that it stems from anxiety. Because if somebody says, I feel imposter syndrome, well, why? I've explained why. And I've also explained that anxiety-laden state, that is the seed. And you have to negotiate that to feel comfortable in your workplace. And this is the thing, I feel very comfortable in my workplace and in the different places where I work, because I have adapted to it, and it's transformed my life. It's a vicious cycle of good. But you see, my preoccupied part does mean that I can be talking forever. So this is the moment for me to stop. But thank you for listening.